Hi everyone. Today we're going to be working a little more on this website. We are going to be wrapping our names in a div to prepare for adding images to them. So let's start by starting up our website by going over here and then hitting the play button. All right, there it is. If I hit click me, you see we've got these names and they're big and they are all on top of each other. So they make for a list. We don't want them to potentially always be on top of each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to, right now they're in H2 tags, we're going to wrap them in a, what's called a div. It is a tag. So this is a P tag, this is an input tag. There's something called a div tag, oops, lowercase div. And this looks like that, and it's basically a container that's used to format things on a screen. Oftentimes you'll have divs inside of divs inside of divs inside of divs on a website. If you inspect on a lot of websites, and you can see the HTML there, you'll see that. So divs are a very common element that's used. We are going to use it. So we're going to start with a const, and we're going to call this one Pokemon container. Oops. Container. So equals, and we're going to just basically copy this because it's going to be a document.createElement, what we're going to use. And we're going to put, instead of an H2 here, we're just going to put div. The funny thing about this document create element, you can put anything in here and it will change it to, it'll create a tag with whatever name, even if it's not a valid name. But for now, we want to definitely stick with valid names. So we are going to create a div, and what we are going to do after that is we are going to actually insert this H2 element into that div. And if you remember from before, a previous video, we used a dot append to add something into another with this particular type of situation. The reason we're going to use append instead of HTML for now is that we're going to actually add an image as a second thing in the container. So we actually do want to use append. We could do HTML and just pass this in and it would be fine, but then we'd have to append the image when we do it. But let's just do append for both for now because it's not going to hurt anything. We're going to append the H2 element. So now we are going to return not the H2 element, but the Pokemon container. And so if we console log, actually if I move this down, Command X and hit enter and Command V, we can console log our Pokemon container now, and we'll see something a little bit different than we did before. So that's all we have to do for now. We are doing document create element for div, and then down here after we create the HTML element, we were going to take that container, we're going to append or add that Pokemon name element into the container, and now we're going to return the container. So let's see what this looks like when we do this. Go back over here, hit refresh, click me. It looks exactly the same. The reason why it looks exactly the same is because the container, the div container, takes on the dimensions of the element inside of it. So it looks pretty much the same. The parts of it that are different you can't really see off the bat. So we are going to add some styles to the Pokemon container now. So the way they do add a styles to a div or an element of any kind is you reference it with a dot set attribute method. And with a set attribute, it takes two parameters. The first one is going to be the name of, when I say attribute, an attribute is ID is an attribute, onClick is an attribute. Attribute is anything in the opening tag that has a word with an equal sign next to it, and then quotes around the thing that it's. So it's basically a key value pair. This is a key called onClick, and the value of this attribute is this function as a string. The key of this one is ID. The the value of this attribute is inserted name. So, and the key here is ID, and the value of this the key of this attribute and the value of the attribute is displayed text. So, set attribute, and the attribute we're going to set is called style. And this is a special attribute that will actually, I don't know if you can guess what it does, but it styles your div. Actually, before we do this though, let me comment this right now. What I wanted to show you though on the website that I forgot to say is if we right click and inspect here, if you go to console, you can see now we have this name with h2 tag. It says name, that's the name of the log, but what we changed was instead of passing h2 tag, we passed the div. You can see it's a div with the h2 tag inside of it now. And that's what the difference that we just made with adding that div on there. So now we're going to add a style attribute, and we'll see how it changes. And the style attribute, in the quotes, we're going to have a type of style. And I'm going to go and use the style of width. We're just going to set the width first. Width 250 px, and put a semicolon after it. So 200. So this sets the width of a container of a div or a tag of any kind, and the width of this is 250 pixels. So we are going to save that, and then we are going to run this, and we'll see what this looks like. It looks the same, but if we look inside of here, you can see this div has a style attribute of width 250 pixels. That's what we did when we added that. So let's go ahead and add something to make it a little bit more interesting. So the next one we're going to add, so now we're going to hit space here, and the next style we're going to add is the display style. There are a lot of styles, and you can search HTML styles or div styles. Each container has very similar styles, but these are also actually CSS styles that we're adding to this. We could add this. We could just add a class to these, and then set the styles in the CSS file. But for now, we're going to add them this way. But this is the same as CSS, what we're doing here. So we're going to set the display as inline block. And now what this is going to do is going to change all of these from being just block, which is the normal default way that an h2 tag is, and I think even a div, and inline block will make them all go side by side. So let's see what that looks like. So now if I hit refresh, click me, now you can see they're side by side over here. They are, if I were to make this screen wider, they might even be 3 across. Yep, 4 across. So they're going side by side as long as they can fit in the screen. So cool. So, and if you look at this, you see style width 250 pixels and display inline block. So let's go ahead and add a few more styles here. And these are going to be more interesting styles. So let's go ahead and we're going to concatenate this just because we don't want to go too far off the screen. So we're going to add a few more. So we're going to say margin of 5px. And 5px and 20 is like 250 px. This stands for, px stands for pixels. What that means is that all screens are made up of tiny little dots of light, and those are called pixels. Whether it's your phone screen, a TV screen, or a computer monitor, any kind of screen like that is going to have pixels. And so this is saying, as a developer, you need to understand exactly how many pixels something is. And so oftentimes, especially when you're displaying these types of things on the screen, either on a phone or on a website like we're doing, this is the kind of thing that becomes very valuable to understand. 5 pixels is very small, 250 pixels is bigger. We're going to see exactly how wide that is in a minute, but we will next set the margin, and then we're going to, a margin is basically a space around your container. Let's go ahead and set background color, and that'll help see what the div actually looks like. And we're going to call this one cornflower blue. There are a number of default colors that you can get if you just if you do a Google search on background colors for CSS styles or colors for CSS styles, you'll see a number of defaults. You can also use what's called hexadecimal values to represent colors, and there's other ways to represent colors here. For now, we're going to just use the word color cornflower blue, and then we're going to do one more step. We're going to say border radius, and this is going to curve. Actually, no, we'll wait on that one. Let's just look at this first. So hit save. Now if we go over to here and we refresh this, hit click me, now you can see what the div looks like. This is the shape of the div now. So this is 250 pixels. And this right here is actually 5 plus 5. This is 10 pixels. We say, well, why 10? So if you look at this, this is a margin. A margin is saying around this box, around this div, this box is a div, and around this we want a space of 5 pixels. So if you give a space of 5 pixels on this one, and you give a space of 5 pixels in this one, then it's going to be 10 pixels between them. So that's setting those. Next, we're going to set the border radius. Border radius is kind of fun. I like it a lot because it curves your corners. Now we're going to curve our corners a lot on this one. We're going to say 30 px for this. Put a semicolon there, hit save. And now if we refresh, hit click me, now we've got neat looking pill type of things. And this is kind of fun. I like it. You don't have to change it this way. Let's make one more change before we do a commit and push and end this. The last change I'd like to do is, this is H2 element. Let's change this name from H2 element to title. And we can do that with, because we have abracadabra installed, we can hit at the F2 key. So the very top of your keyboard. F2 will allow us to rename this, and it'll rename it everywhere. So let's call it title. So now we have the title. It changed it here, it changed it here, and it changed it here. So now we have changed that name to title. But what I really want to do is, I don't want this to be an H2 element, I want this to be a button. So I'm going to change that from H2 to button, and just like that, we now, if I hit refresh and I hit click me, these are all buttons instead of H2 tags. And this is going to prepare us for the next step. Buttons are kind of fun. You can click them. Right now we don't have any on-press events added to those buttons, so if you just click it, it just doesn't do anything. So whereas our main button, as you know, this button, if you click it, it does do something, right? If we hit refresh, this button does something because it has an on-press on it. These buttons don't have an on-press. So the way we would add an on-press would be a set attribute, but we're not going to do that right now. I think that's good for now. So let's go ahead and go to your terminal. I'm using the terminal down here, and do git status, and you can kind of see some of the changes. I'm just going to, you can also see your changes you made by clicking over here, and if you click on this, double click on that, this shows red is the things that were removed and green is the things that were added. You can see that we've added the Pokemon container set attributes, as well as the Pokemon container. The H2 element, it was changed to title, and it's down here. And we also changed it from H2 to a button. And then we add the inner HTML of the title now is being set to Pokemon name still. Pokemon container is being, so then the title is appended to the Pokemon container. And we're logging out the Pokemon container, and then we're returning that, so that the Pokemon list is actually containers now. And that's why that works the way it does. And if you want to stop looking at this view, you can just hit this X up here. So it creates a tab. So let's go ahead and go over here and git add dot git commit dash m added containers around Pokemon names. Git push. All right, and that's it. Thanks for watching, and happy coding.